This is Senator Bernie Sanders.
Hey, live from Denver. It's Friday night. We are good to go. Welcome to Critical Conversations. Crazy hot. We're having a little lull in the weather right now in terms of heat waves, but apparently
it's gonna go right back up.
Yeah. So as you can see, I am joined by my beautiful wife, Melissa.
Hello.
They have missed you so much.
I'm sorry, guys. I had a rough couple weeks.
Yes, well, it's all good. We're just, like we say, we're always happy to give Melissa her time. But I am so glad you're here.
I am too.
Hey, I had forgotten why I got these boom arms for the microphones in the first place and was going back to the stands for the microphones until I heard a couple live streams and was like, oh yeah, right. Because every time, I hit my elbow on the damn, table, it goes up to the mic and everything. So anyway, return of the boom arms, and I'm sure we will have Mel's up in place here before too long as well. So we're very happy to be here with you guys. We got a lot to cover tonight. We got a lot to talk about, actually, which is fun. I really am excited about tonight's show because it's fun when real life gives you opportunities to do the kind of stuff I like to talk about, or give you things to talk about. And we're going to talk about the the Department of Justice indictment this week against Russian nationals, and how that involved some American content creators and propaganda and how it works. But first, how was your week?
It was good. Just mostly worked, and I'm kind of tired today, but that's all right.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's Friday, and we are very much looking forward to chilling. Now, this being sort of how propaganda divides us, that is what we're going to be talking about tonight. No, don't you even question it. That is what we are covering, and it's going to be awesome. Propaganda does not only happen during the war. So anyway, but first, did you have a quote of the week for us?
The oblique paradox of propaganda is that the lie in the throat becomes, by repetition, the truth in the heart. John Grierson.
What are our thoughts out there on this?
It's like you hear it long enough, and then you start believing it, and it becomes real to you.
Yes. An actual function of our brain. The more we hear a thing, the more convinced we are that it is true. Mm-hmm. This is a vital pillar on which advertising and propaganda are based. Mm-hmm. This is a fundamental truth about how we think. We're gonna, like I said, we're gonna get into this. My dad jokish thing of the week is, I saw this earlier today and I could not stop laughing. If empires have emperors and kingdoms have kings, what do countries have?
Oh boy.
Mm-hmm. So moving right along, I did want to also, yes, let us throw out our Snuggles, Not Struggles cam for this week.
This is him tearing
Yes.
apart. Well, not really tearing away, but chewing aggressively on his little mummy head. It's this little squeaky toy that looks like a mummy head. And he loves it, and it makes the most obnoxious noises, but it is a good time for him because he's a little killer at heart.
That's right. I found out, I didn't or forgot about this, but squeaky toys are that way. Dogs really love them because the sound imitates their prey dying
Yeah.
as they're squeezing and biting the life out of them.
That's what we are allowing into our home
That's what we have in our
and snuggling with every day.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So this is the fun with our Benson. Yes, it is actually knowing that about what that sound is all about. It gets a little disturbing from the other side of the house, hearing how aggressive and enthusiastic he is about chewing on that little toy there. I mean, you can hear it from across the house.
Yeah.
He loves making that thing squeal. So just don't get hit with the shrink ray.
Yes.
That is exactly right. There have been more than a couple of times I've been out on a walk with Benson in the neighborhood here, and I've been thinking to myself about the whole Honey, I Shrunk the Kids movie and what a terrifying beast he would be if I was, like 2 inches tall, right? So he's cute and fluffy as long as we can pick him up.
Sure, all those grasshoppers that he scares when he's walking.
That's right.
They're not so into it.
No, it's funny because we actually did very purposefully target a smaller breed. I want a dog that I can pick up. I am not into, I know, everybody's got their thing. My thing is smaller dogs. Okay, so I also wanted to address, as we're getting into the show here, before we get into the main part, I just sometimes when you see me look over at the screen and clicky, it's because I'm skipping the ads. I want to bring up or mention real fast the Linkin Park controversy that has generated today. Linkin Park announced a new singer, Samantha Edison, I think her name is.
Oh, a lady, nice.
Yeah, well, except...
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I purposefully didn't tell you about this because I wanted to get your reaction on the show here today.
Is she not really a lady? Like, what is it?
No, she's totally a lady. She is a former band leader or singer for Dead Sarah.
Never heard of him.
Not me neither. But she's also a Scientologist.
Oh.
Yeah, like full-blown. Been to Celebrity Center. She's been called out by a couple Scientologists. Cedric Bixler, and Ian Rafalco have both. This was featured in Rolling Stone today. There was a article about this going along with the announcement from the band that she's their new singer. There's some conjecture about whether she's involved romantically with Mike Shimoda. I don't know anything about that, but I do know she's a Scientologist. And being a Scientologist, that means, as has been being pointed out by Ian Rafalco and others, that this means that she is anti-psychiatry and the mental health treatment and actual death of, the lead singer from before Chester is something she's completely, backwards and anathema to, treatment and mental health and, denies any of that exists. And was also accused of being... rape apologist because she was a supporter of Danny Masterson.
Oh, God.
As a friend of Danny Masterson, she apparently was supportive of him, showed up at the courtroom, according to a quote from Chrissy Bixler from that, I believe, from that Rolling, I read that in the Rolling Stone interview. So, no, it's not about the Muslims supporting roof-topping gays. It's about the rape apologia and the denial of mental health and services for such, right? It's a bit of a slap in the face to Chester and his memory. And yet, Linkin Park's not a bunch of stupid people, so it's a little surprising that this is a thing. So there's some controversy brewing over this, centralized around her involvement with Scientology and its beliefs and her connection with Danny Masterson. The social media buzz on this that I've seen is, okay, well, show me the evidence from the Linkin Park fans. And there is, a little bit of evidence out there, but this is all, the band needs to answer up on this, and so does she. So we'll see what happens with that. But that's out there, controversial, and yeah, and if what we saw with Ashton Kutcher and Mila and their sort of public spanking over offering letters of support to the court for Danny Masterson. This is just echoes of that, right? Because Danny Masterson is a convicted rapist, and he's in jail now, prison. Not jail, prison. And he ain't coming out for a very, very long time. That is a legal fact. It's not conjecture or maybe somebody's idea or accusation that he's guilty of that. He is guilty. And Scientology is guilty of trying to cover that up as an organization. We cover that in so much detail on this channel. So to be at all connected with that on the wrong side of that, and then, continue to hold those views as, that Danny was an innocent man and everything was cool and it's not a problem. No, that's not the situation. Okay. Yeah, no, Linkin Park was definitely not done 20 years ago. They're definitely still around. Okay, so now let's get into it. Because I got points I want to make. And I brought, I have papers. Oh, do I have papers? So many papers. So first off, for anybody who doesn't know or hadn't heard about this, and I asked, we went to a dinner party last night, and I asked, and only a couple of the people had actually even heard about this. So let me first say that there was an indictment issued by the Department of Justice this week over 2 Russian nationals who were accused of basically engaging in a spy propaganda operation, overseeing the content editorial authority to some degree with some creators, and actually bringing new content in that they posted on American YouTube, a YouTube channel. Various other social media platforms are implied or discussed in the indictment. The fact that it's not just this operation with Tenet Media, T-E-N-E-T Media, which was had a YouTube channel and other social media faces. That's shut down now. They were kicked off YouTube. And the company, I don't believe, is in operation because the DOJ basically, is like seizing all the assets according to the indictment. And the people who headed up this company, this Tenet Media, are named or not named in the document. They're referred to as, I think, Founder 1 and Founder 2. But it's been put together by various media outlets who these content creators are based on the very Googleable search phrases that are included in the indictment, so you can look up who these people are and what it's all about. So basically, Russian media, Russia Today, RT, dumped $10 million into this one operation to fund content creators who were hard right, offering some pretty extreme political, ideological views. I'll show you one. And it's propaganda, right? And so let's go ahead and talk about propaganda, because what's happening here is not anything new, different, unusual, or strange. It's happens 7 days a week. And that's why I thought, well, here's an example with the DOJ doing all this wonderful work for me in the indictment, laying it all out. Maybe I should go over this with people and talk about how propaganda works, because this is the bread and butter of cults. This is what cults do 24/7. This is Scientology as a whole propaganda operation. With their dissemination and promotion materials, that's one thing. But then you have the Office of Special Affairs, which is doing its legal stuff. But they also engage in these covert operations, things where it's not obvious. And it's really hard to, that's it, Lauren Chen was her name. There we go, commentator, cool. So first off, I kind of wanted to just say real fast that there's different ideas about what propaganda is, and there's what I tend to run into. Like, what do you think propaganda is?
It's like a media campaign to change someone's mind or convince someone of something.
It's getting a message out there.
Yeah.
It's propagating ideas rather than products, like physical things. It's propagating ideas. It's the idea of throwing ideas out there and getting them to spread. And so you can quickly see with human beings that there's about 1 billion ways of doing that. But what people think about mostly, from what I've seen in talking to people, is they think about the very obvious ways that an idea would be propagated. I openly tell you, I don't like Snoopy. Snoopy kind of sucks. Right? That's an idea. Okay, now I've propagated it, right? Very obvious. There wasn't any insinuation or inference required. I blatantly...
Right. It wasn't implied. It was pretty obvious.
Pretty out there, right? But there's levels to this. If I also just instead go, oh, you bring up Snoopy. Bring up Snoopy.
Snoopy's so cute.
Okay, so anyway.
Yeah.
Right? I haven't said a word. But I've inferred. You get to fill in the blanks of what I inferred. You get to fill in the blanks of what I inferred. A lot of open territory there, but I inferred something. Still propagated an idea, isn't it? What idea is it? Well, it's going to depend an awful lot on what I think you're going to take away from that if I'm trying to plant something there.
Yeah.
We talk about this all the time here on the channel in terms of seed planting. That's a form of influence or propagation. And that's basically what this gets into is you have obvious 1984 level stuff. The stuff that everybody kind of goes, propaganda, right? Real easy to see. This is communicated an idea to me. Maybe I agree with it. Maybe I don't. That's how we end up feeling emotionally about it and that kind of thing. But it's real blatant stuff. Advertising is blatant propaganda. Rarely is there well done, really well done covert advertising. It does happen. It's all brand product placement. Stuff gets in the background in movies. You're barely registering it, but it's there, right? And the brain makes the connection. And so it remembers, right? Pepperidge Farm remembers. And so does your brain, even if you aren't aware of that fact. And we don't have, I don't mean to imply that we all have this secret eidetic memory. I'm just saying that your brain takes impressions of things and uses that later to give you those gut instincts and gut ideas and those kind of things, right? And there is obvious propaganda, which means and intends to be obvious, like Tucker Carlson's grocery store video, where he was in Russia and he took a video of how wonderful and great and incredible. If you all saw it or want to Google it, it's really quite something. Because it's just straight up pandering. I mean, it's just totally. Like, wow, right? And they use slogans and they use words and phrases, and there's all kinds of levels to this. I'm just sort of talking generally, right, about what it is. And it goes, but it goes deeper than the obvious stuff. It's about influence and anything that will create influence. Ask yourself, in today's world, how are you influenced? Don't think about, not how do you think others are influenced, but you personally. Think about that. How do you get influenced? Well, let's talk about a couple levels of this. Certainly the opinions of those you care about matter to you, right? Your family, close friends, perhaps even people at work or clubs you're part of. Your opinions also matter to them. The influence goes both ways, yet it's still influential. We usually don't think of this kind of thing as nefarious, but and yet
it can be.
It's influence, good, bad, whatever. That's all context, but the fact that the influence exists is kind of undeniable, and yet it's something we don't think about too much because we're always aimed out at that big brother propaganda,
Yeah.
right? And yet you think you don't get propaganda from your kids? Right? Or kids from their parents? Santa Claus, anyone?
Right.
Right? Propaganda is like it's a tool. We use it and we misuse it. There's also the influence of your job. I'm just checking here real fast, make sure we're still keeping people okay. So let me know if anything horrible is happening in the comments, because I know this is a hot topic thing for some people, and we're going to talk about a few things that that some people have opinions about, and that's fine. There's the influence of our job, which is different from some person at your job. Maybe you care about the guy who's on the other side of the cubicle. I was going to say domicile, but the cubicle, right?
You're there all the time. It kind of feels that way.
Exactly. But beyond that, there's the workplace itself, right? And the culture of it, and the rules of it, and the workplace's identity, and that kind of thing. There's the influence of our job, different from any one person at your job. If you work for a company that produces biased or opinionated products or endorses certain messaging like Chick-fil-A or Hobby Lobby, then most of the people who work for that organization are going to be influenced by that. I didn't say everybody will, but most people are. There's also the fact that if your income depends on you holding or agreeing with certain ideas, then it's not going to be hard to sell you on those ideas, or at least keep you from disagreeing with them.
Yeah.
Right? Again, it's not 100%. This is no blanket statement of everybody acts this way, but we're talking large groups of people do. For sure. Then we work our way out into the world, and we come into broad sources of influence. Social media trends, influencer endorsements. Instead of directly promoting a political agenda or government message, influencers, and that's literally what they're called, may subtly share ideas that align with specific interests, framing certain lifestyles, products, or behaviors as trendy. This makes the influence feel organic, but it may be driven by coordinated efforts behind the scenes, as we're going to talk about. Then there's entertainment medias, movies, TV shows, right? This is a way of getting propaganda out there. It's not to say that every single entertainment show is propaganda. No. It's not, but
it can be.
But it can be. Themes in popular media might subtly reinforce specific ideologies, cultural values, or political narratives.
I'll tell you one that's in there a lot. Is the American military will not let you use any of their stuff, uniforms, equipment, whatever, in your movie or TV show if you make them look bad. So a lot of these movies about war and about soldiers and stuff tend to be, not so. Let's not make the U.S. military look too terrible.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly. Right. And that's why some movies actually don't get made, right? Or they won't get made with the military's cooperation.
Right.
You're going to have to do some other runaround. But if you have their cooperation because they like your script or they doctor it, which they've done, to make it more favorable, then you got an aircraft carrier at your disposal. It's quite something. And a lot of people object for different reasons to different forms of propaganda that appears in entertainment. It's wrong, it's bad, it's this, that. That's all cultural, that's all contextual, and that's all time sensitive. So the fact that it happens on all ends of all ideologies across all spectrums is all we're talking about here with this, that entertainment can be used for that. A film might consistently depict certain nations or groups as villains, creating subconscious associations in the audience's mind. Certainly, all throughout my childhood through the 80s, Russia was the evil empire, as Reagan called them, right? And they were doing some pretty evil shit, too.
Well, and think about, like, in the 80s and even in the 90s, how many and probably even before that, like how many bad guys in movies and shows were always like Russian or Eastern European, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
There's some propaganda.
That's right. And then finally, there are corporate social responsibility campaigns. Companies might launch these social responsibility campaigns that seem to promote environmental sustainability or social justice, but in reality, these efforts may be designed to shift attention away from more harmful practices the company engages in. Shell Oil, anyone? Do people? Do we care? Do people care? What was that motto they had? The Shell Oil had a whole marketing campaign for a while. It really stuck with me because I can't even remember the damn tagline. But it was something about do oil companies go way out of their way, or to save the environment around oil factories or something?
Oh,
and it was like,
yeah, there was a time when all the oil companies are like
awful.
making commercials about how great they were for the environment.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It was just self-propagation, promotion. But the company, the campaign serves to boost the company's image while avoiding deeper scrutiny. I really should have looked that commercial up. It was just such blatant propaganda. So, any of these methods influence public perception in ways that seem innocuous, but can have a profound impact. And this is the thing, right? This is the point I kind of wanted to make with all that is it might seem like it's no big deal. You might think, I'm not being affected by that or whatever. And maybe with some of it, you're not. But I can guarantee you that some of it's getting through and you're just not aware of it. You just don't know about it. It's just impressions and feelings. And that's about as much sort of acknowledgement or awareness we're giving to some of the messaging and some of the communications that we receive. And these things do come back later and have interesting effects on our thinking. Yeah, the Soviets definitely didn't do themselves any favors, that is for sure. And so we come to this week's indictment by the DOJ and a real-life example of how professionals work at this. And this is really, it's just too good of a look behind the curtain not to share. And I'm calling this from Russia with ha-ha-has because when the DOJ contacted Russia about this, Russian TV, RT, about this, they got ha-ha-ha-ha-ha-ha back in reply.
Wow.
Right, to this thing. Now, the other thing I need to say before we go launching into any of this is that I'm reading from highlights from an indictment. This is not a statement of guilt. This is an indictment of crimes that the DOJ is asserting were committed by these individuals that are unnamed in this, but we're going to connect some names. Nothing I'm saying in this show today is an accusation of actual guilt of these crimes, because that's what's going to be determined by a court. That's what our legal thing is about. But we are going to talk about the accusations that are discussed in this indictment. I've gone through and read the whole thing. It's 33 pages, and we're not going to read all 33 pages. I read it so you don't have to. Okay. But I highlighted a few things where I thought we might go over. RT, formerly known as Russia Today, I'm reading directly from it now, is a state-controlled media outlet funded and directed by the government of Russia. After Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022, RT was sanctioned, dropped by distributors, and ultimately forced to cease formal operations in the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, and the European Union. No Russia Today in any of those places. In response, RT created, in the words of its editor-in-chief, an entire empire of covert projects, quote unquote, designed to shape public opinion in Western audiences. One of RT's covert projects, as described herein, is its funding and direction of a Tennessee-based online content creation company. And this is what has emerged as Tenet Media, headed up by Laura Chen and I think her husband or partner. Okay, so and by the way, if you really want to get your blood boiling, look up Lauren Chen trying to do stand-up comedy at some Republican event.
Is it bad?
She was just straight up trashing homeless people, and not in a funny way. It was actually really, really gross. And I was down, I'm down for dark humor. I'm down for some, some whatever, but that's not what she was delivering. It was pretty gross. So she's the one, and like I said, her business partner, who were heading up this company these guys went after. But first, that's what Russia Today, RT, is. It's a Russian media news organization. Using multiple fake personas to employees of RT. One of them is Konstantin Kalishnikov, also known as Kostya, and Elena Afanasyeва, aka Lena. I'll just call her Lena. They deployed nearly $10 million laundered through a network of foreign shell entities to covertly fund and direct U.S. Company One, which is the Tenet Media. There was also a Canadian company that Chen set up, where they were getting paid through, but they set up this U.S. company to send the funds to pay the content creators that they hired and recruited. So using multiple fake personas, Lena edited, posted, and directed the posting by Tenet Media of hundreds of videos. Many of the videos published by this company contain commentary on events and issues in the United States, such as immigration, inflation, and other topics. Related to domestic and foreign policy. While the views expressed in the videos are not uniform, the subject matter and content of the videos are often consistent with the government of Russia's interest in amplifying U.S. domestic divisions in order to weaken U.S. opposition to core government of Russia interests, such as its ongoing war in Ukraine. Now, I wanted to show you guys this for a number of reasons. Let's go ahead and jump. I was going to wait till later, but let's jump to it now to give you an idea of what kind of content was being pushed out. And this is what we're going to do is go over here. Yeah, so I'm going to show you a video from one of the creators, Tim Pool. And I guess it's just going to speak for itself. Let's just go ahead and throw it up.
They know it. But I don't know that it matters anymore. This is psychotic. Ukraine is the enemy of this country. Ukraine is our enemy, being funded by the Democrats. I will stress this again. One of the greatest enemies of our nation right now is Ukraine. They are expanding this war. Now, don't get me wrong. I know. You've got criminal elements of the U.S. government pushing them and guiding them and telling them what to do. Ukraine is now accused, a German warrant issued for blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline, triggering this conflict. Ukraine is the greatest threat to this nation and to the world. We should rescind all funding and financing, pull out all military support, and we should apologize to Russia.
There we go. Okay. So just to... Yeah, okay. So I just wanted to show that kind of right off because there's a couple things that are sort of demonstrated in that clip, one of which is that it's, scripted right off of, Russian government's talking points about Ukraine, which is very clearly a country that we are supporting, allied with, providing military aid to, et cetera, as a national interest matter and world interest matter, really. And this show is not about to debate, the Ukraine thing. It's just the content of that video is exactly what was wanted by these Russian operatives who were feeding money into this group. So we come back to the indictment. This company, Tenet Media, never disclosed to its viewers that it was funded and directed by Russia Today. nor did its two founders and principal executives register with the Attorney General as an agent of a foreign principal as required by law. This is law. It's not when you see video that says, produced by or, product of Al Jazeera news organization, that has to be on the video and has to be identifiable as produced by a foreign government when it's being propagated here. If it's not known that that's the source of the funding or the speeches and the scripts and whatever, then, and we're talking about that a national government is involved in funding this operation, that is what has to be disclosed. It's the law. It's a whole foreign affairs spy thing. And so that's the law they're talking about here. Kalishnikov, Afanasyevaia, and I know I'm mispronouncing that, Afanasyevaia. Okay, I'm horrible with the Russian things. Also worked together, and the founder 1 and founder 2, the Chen connection here, also worked together to deceive two U.S. online commentators who respectively have over 2.4 million and 1.3 million YouTube subscribers. They worked together, these two Russian agents and the two heads of the company, to work to mask the U.S. company's true source of funding, Russia Today, by falsely portraying to the commentators that their company was sponsored by a private investor named Edward Gregorian, with 2 N's at the end of his name. This was supposed to be the angel investor guy sending the money in. I use angel investor loosely, but the fund, the stake horse, right? This was the guy who was staking this whole operation, and so they bet everything on the validity of this guy named Edward Gregorian, and let's just say that their due diligence steps were insufficient to find out that this was actually a Russian operation. Russian TV, or RT rather, Russia Today, sorry, is a Russian state-funded, it's not a private organization in Russia, it's state-funded and state-directed media outlet. As RT's editor-in-chief has publicly acknowledged, quote, since RT receives budget from the state, it must complete tasks given by the state. End quote. For nearly 2 decades, RT has promoted the objectives of the government of Russia by publishing disinformation and propaganda, leveraging its international network to amplify the government of Russia's message to foreign audiences, and using its guise as a conventional media outlet to lend credibility to that message. And they give examples of where it's fairly obvious, in matters related to the government of Russia and this kind of thing. For example, in discussing RT's coverage of the United Kingdom's exit from the European Union in 2016, an RT journalist recalled to an academic researcher, quote, I asked my editor, what is RT's line for this Brexit situation? And he said, anything that causes chaos is RT's line.
Jeez.
Right, there's a quote. So, February 2022, they invade Ukraine. On or about February 25th, 2024, RT's editor-in-chief declared during a Russian television appearance that, quote, public opinion in the West is changing very rapidly and very cheerfully, due in part to RT. And you say, well, how is this possible when RT was shut down in Canada, UK, EU, and America? RT's editor-in-chief further explained that despite being banished everywhere on February 25th, referring to the start of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, RT had built, quote, an enormous network, an entire empire of covert projects that is working with the public opinion, bringing truth to Western audiences, end quote. So that's right out of the editor-in-chief's mouth, according to this indictment. According to this indictment, also, these folks, these two Russian agents, managed multiple covert distribution channels in the United States, including this one company. The indictment makes it clear there was a lot more going on than just this. And that they edited this company's content without disclosing that they were working for Russia Today. The Kalishnikov person, there were two of these people acted as though, through emails and Discord messaging, they acted as though they were about 5 or 6 different personas that they were interacting with, the two founders, Chen and her partner, and even with the producers and content creators through the Discord. They had a Discord server that they would use to upload content, discuss things, coordinate their activities. And these guys were eventually given full access to all of that. And during the course, this all happened last year and this year. All of this activity all started, the company was founded, the money was sent, the contracts were negotiated, the people were gotten on board, and they all agreed, yes, 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 we're going to do this whole thing, and they got paid a lot of money by these people. They used multiple fake personas, including Helena Shudra, Victoria Pesti, and there are other names. That talks about the founders of the companies. U.S. Company 1, this is referring to Tenet Media, is a United States corporation established under the laws of Tennessee. Founder 1 has described this company as the U.S. subsidiary of their Canadian company. I remember they had a Canadian company and then they had a U.S. company. Okay, so they set it up as the U.S. company would be subsidiary. They would get funds to them, the founders of the company, to the Canadian corporation, and other money was sent directly to the U.S. corporation through a network of companies. I'll read it to you in a second here. Founder... Okay, as set forth above, from in or about March 2021 to in or about February 2022, sorry, so it actually predates last year, sorry, my bad. Founder 1 used Canadian Company 1 to produce content for Russian TV, RT, Russia Today, pursuant to a written contract. Founder 1 incorporated U.S. Company 1 on or about January 19th, 2022. Okay, there it is. And applied with the Tennessee Department of State to transact business under its current operating name, which Company 1 uses on its website and social media channels on or about May 22nd, 2023. That's when they kind of go public and this kind of becomes a thing. On its website, U.S. Company 1 describes itself as a, quote, network of heterodox commentators that focus on Western political and cultural issues, quote, and identifies 6 commentators, including commentator 1 and 2, as its talent. And this is how you figure out it's Tenet Media, because who else describes themselves exactly that way? They do, right? So this is the company here. Conduct requiring registration under the Foreign Agents Registration Act. That's the violation here. Conduct requiring registration under FARA, F-A-R-A, includes, as is relevant here, political activities, acting as a publicity agent or information service employee, and dispersing money for or in the interests of the foreign principal. Right? You can't be conducting, spy ops on our territory and not tell us what you're doing, It's like, obviously that it is a crime, it says here, to willfully fail to register when required under FARA. The purpose of FARA is to prevent covert influence by foreign principals, which include foreign governments, companies, and persons located outside the United States. Among other things, FARA registration reveals the identity of the foreign principal on whose behalf the registrant performs services, the type of services the registrant provides the foreign principal, and the source and amount of compensation the registrant receives from the foreign principal. trouble. And this is one of the biggest reasons why government officials, Supreme Court justices, and other people get into all kinds of trouble, is because they get influenced by foreign actors and don't register, and then it's like, well, you did, what the hell, right? It's all under the table. Okay. Okay, here we go. So earlier, let's see here. Earlier they had worked on a different setup to launch a YouTube channel initially under the name Viewpoint Productions. Viewpoint Productions. I found that oddly Scientological. This was in December 2022.
Okay.
And they wanted to the first task was to find a personality that could serve as the face of the channel, and that for the right candidate, we're willing to pay around $1 to $2 million per year. This was the initial communications on starting this whole thing up with Chen and her partner this is what we want, right? We want to start up this YouTube channel. We got $1 to $2 million to spend. Let's get the right face. Let's get going. On or about January 13th, 2023, a proposed contract for influencer talent scouting services was set up between these RT agents and the founders of this company. And there's a Hungarian shell company in the middle of this that didn't have a public website, but they kind of went for it, and they proposed the proposed contract awarded the founder one $8,000 per month plus a percentage of any deals that they closed with influencers over the next several months. While founder one continued to negotiate the contract, they accepted interim payments and began to scout for influencers for the new YouTube channel for Edward Gregorian. By February 6th of 2023, this is last year, a short list of candidates for the YouTube channel was proposed, and in the same email, they attached a receipt for an $8,000 money transfer from a Czech Republic shell corporation to the Canadian corporation. They got all the paper trail laid out on this thing as far as how the money went where. They got the Discord messages, they got the emails, they got all this stuff. If you're going to do covert ops, don't do it on Discord. So, they had reached out to commentator one. We'll be speaking with him today. The contract will likely cost well over $2 million a year for this other commentator. And he's just like, yeah, it's okay. Over $2 million as long as we get the right person under the right conditions. Money was just not an object here. Which, it's the kind of thing that might set off alarm bells with some people. Then, on or about February 8th, 2023, Founder One reported to these Russian agents that they had been in touch with Commentator One and Commentator Two, and number one said, it would need to be closer to $5 million yearly for him to be interested. And so this is negotiation, right? And that Commentator Two said it would take $100,000 per weekly episode to make it worth his while. And that is how much these guys ended up getting paid, by the way. They were getting $400,000 a month for producing 4 videos a week. Founder One cautioned that from a profitability standpoint, and this is key, from a profitability standpoint, these founders of this company knew right from the get-go that these guys they were recruiting were not gonna pull in money that was gonna pay for salaries like that. They knew they weren't going to be pulling in that kind of money. They said from a profitability standpoint, it would be very hard for Viewpoint Productions to recoup the costs for the likes of these two commentators based on ad revenue from web traffic or sponsors alone. And despite this warning that it would not be profitable to employ these people, they said, quote, "We would love to move forward with these two people." Right? So like every red flag that could be going off was going off. Now to cut to, so then I'll show you this real fast just here. when the commentators asked for due diligence, who is this guy and who are we signing up with? This was the CV they received. This is a copy of the CV, right? Edward Gregorian with the 2 N's, and born in Brussels, neighborhood in 1975 to French. This is not a real person. To French Armenian father and Belgian mother. I'm reading exactly what it says here, right?
Whose resume looks that good? Like, what's with the picture and the...
Well, not only that, but the language is stilted when it's in English, right?
Yeah.
It's weird. There's no articles here. Like born in 1975 to French American father and Belgian mother. I mean, you usually throw some articles in there. Anyway, this whole thing is fake. And there was no record of this guy ever being employed by any of the banks that he said he was with. Digital forensic evidence further confirms that this guy, Edward Gregorian, and these 3 investor personas were in truth and in fact the same individual. I'm reading from the indictment again. For example, on approximately 39 occasions between in or about November 23 and July 24, email accounts used by Edward Gregorian and Persona 1 to communicate with the company founders were accessed using the same IP address at around the same time. They're coming from, the calls coming from inside the house, right? It's the same place. As another example, on January 10th, 23, Persona 1 emailed the text of a draft email to Persona 2, which Persona 2 then pasted into a new email and sent to Founder 1 from Persona 2's email account. Like they could see by the evidence that this was just one dude using all these different accounts, right? Okay, so so the end result of all this negotiation and setup was Commentator 1's contract provided for 4 weekly videos to be hosted and live streamed by the company in exchange for $400,000 plus a $100,000 signing bonus and an additional performance bonus. And the Commentator 1's production company agreed that any and all content created under this agreement shall be the property of this company, not their property. Commentator 2's contract, and I believe this is Tim Pool, provided for weekly videos to be hosted by the company in exchange for a fee of $100,000 per video. Non-exclusive, non-transferable license. So new contract sent around March 31st, 2023. Yeah, they were just telling him, hey, you get these guys. There was further communications that indicated to the company founders, if you get these guys, we've got so much more business for you, right? We want more. This is a growing thing. This is just the start. Like dollar signs in the eyes were already happening. And also it says, this
is too good to be true thing though. It's like, I don't know why these content creators like believed in it. Cause it's like those shows where they're like, oh, I got caught taking drugs to another country because they paid me $1 million. They said they were going to pay me $1 million. And you're like, yeah, but you didn't think that was suspicious?
It gets worse. It actually gets worse. They knew. The founders knew. I'm saying specifically, according to the indictment, Founder 1 and Founder 2 admitted to each other in private communications that their investors were in truth and in fact the Russians. The same term that Founder 1 and Founder 2 previously used to refer to Russia Today while working directly under contract with Russia Today. They were at one point openly contracted with RT, and they always called them the Russians. And in between the two of them, right? And so once they figured out who was bankrolling all this, they started talking to each other about this, saying, yeah, it's the Russians, the Russians, the Russians. And so every single thing that happened after that, this is as early as May 27th, 2023, I'm going to ask the Russians about hiring this producer this coming week. Here's a list of responsibilities I sent over to the investors to approve bringing you on, waiting to hear back on timeline, salary. So these investors, these Russia Today agents are giving these guys approval on who to hire, how much to set, right, what to do. just setting up the whole thing. And then they get access to the investor Discord channel, as they called it, on Discord, and they let everybody know this was all happening in plain sight. They were hiding in plain sight with all this stuff. Launched in the fall of 2023 is when this thing kind of went public. The company. Yeah, they even had to agree to bring in these RT people to help manage the company and stuff. I mean, this was all agreed upon beforehand. If you're going to operate an American company, especially an American media company, even as a Canadian national, you definitely have to register with FARA, parasocial audience. That was actually the whole point of the indictment was, yeah, they needed to do that. Because it's happening on American soil with American citizens propagating Russian propaganda. Right, and that's the whole point of this. Is these guys managed to pull a big runaround where they basically, what's the word, suborn? They sort of, compromised, right? These two Canadians to set up an American company,
right?
Hire American content creators with
feed them information
and propaganda, and then have at it. And I showed you the video, which shows you the products that they were getting. It goes on and on here, and we don't have time to go into much more of this. But like they also, after this thing got going, here's how it started, right? These guys contract as content creators, thinking, okay, I'm going to do my videos and give them and put them on the channel, and they'll pay me, exorbitant amounts of money to do that, way more than I could ever possibly be worth. And so this is just too good to be true. I'm signing on. I'm doing this. And they thought that would be all they'd have to do, but it wasn't. After the thing started, the content creators were being pushed and did promote everything that was coming out on that channel, not just their own content. They didn't just, it would be like if I were to not just produce, it's only because this is the first thing that comes to mind, guys. Sorry about this. But if I were to not only produce my own content as part of SPTV, which I'm not, but I'm just saying if I was, but I'd also have to retweet and promote every other creator who was calling themselves part of SPTV too. So you'd be hearing everything about everybody from me all the time. And that's what they wanted these creators to do, and that's what they started doing. Even with that it started with the supermarket video of Tucker Carlson's. It's actually cited in the indictment as they were like, they want me to post this, referencing this supermarket video, but it just feels like overt shilling. And Founder 2 replied that Founder 1 thinks we should put it out there. So at this point, the company founders not only were talking to each other about how they were being funded by Russia Today, but they were actively pushing to their creators, just forward, just get it out there. Just get the Russian propaganda out there, please, okay? And without, of course, telling them that that's what they were doing. Oh, and then this one, and this is where I wanted to get into how this works. Let me drop this on you guys. Another example, March 22nd, 2024, Helena Shundra, one of the aliases they were using, shared in the producer Discord channel a video of the March 22nd, 2024 terrorist attack on a music venue in Moscow, which killed approximately 145 people and injured hundreds more. The producer of this YouTube channel privately messaged Founder 1, writing, I don't know if you saw it, but they want me to post some footage from an attack in Moscow today. There's a watermark in the middle of the page that's blurred, which looks bad. And it's also pretty graphic. You can see people getting shot, albeit from far away. Founder 1 did not push back on the content of the clip, but replied in the producer Discord channel, quote, "I'm not sure it's a good idea to blur out someone's watermark." Helena Shudra then assured the group that, quote, "It's fine, no worries, it falls under fair use." Producer 1 and Producer 2 found a video clip of the attack without a watermark and posted the clip to X, satisfying the RT request. The next day, Helena Shudra privately messaged Founder 1 on Discord asking one of our creators record something about the Moscow terror attack. This is the next day. Despite public reporting that the foreign terrorist organization ISIS had claimed responsibility for the attack, Helena requested that U.S. Company 1 blame Ukraine and the United States, writing, quote, "I think we can focus on the Ukraine/U.S. angle." The mainstream media spread fake news that ISIS claimed responsibility for the attack, yet ISIS itself never made such statements. All terrorists are now detained while they were heading to the border with Ukraine, which makes it even more suspicious why they would want to go to Ukraine to hide, end quote. I didn't say any of that was true. That's what she told them, right? Founder 1 responded that they would ask Commentator 3, and the next day, Commentator 3 said he's happy to cover it. I'll take it. So when you hear or see these creators talking about how they maintained full editorial control, sure.
Probably not.
Propaganda doesn't mean that they have to be editing your videos in order for it to be propaganda.
Right.
If they make up things and say, here's a conspiracy angle to go in on, go produce a show on that angle, and the guy goes, absolutely, I'll go do that. That's literally what it is to be a shill. that is the useful tool right there. Being a useful tool. I'll go do that. I'll forward your propaganda. This is how it really works, right? Is this kind of thing. All this just to get to this stuff, but this is how it works. Is you get people, you compromise them with money, with influence, with power, with sex, with ideology, right? You can brainwash them into it, or you can pay them into it. You know, we've covered that, those things that motivate people. But you push the right buttons with people, and they will do whatever you want them to, and they'll think it's their idea. They'll think they're the ones coming up with this stuff because they maintained full editorial control, didn't they? See, according to this indictment, Tim Pool's content was never edited by Russia Today agents.
No, just heavily influenced.
Well, when you saw that he was reading from a script and calling Ukraine the enemy and literally shouting Russia Today's talking points, Russian government's talking points about Ukraine, they don't have to, take him out back and beat him into it. Right? They just have to pay him inordinate amounts of money every week. And here was the thing, is after this, what came out was, after a while, it became very clear that this was not a profitable enterprise. And they even told the Russians, yeah, like we said, we ain't making, money doing this. And they were like, yeah, it's okay. Here comes more money. To the tune that 90% of the income that was coming into this YouTube channel and this media company to pay these guys, 90% of it came from this $10 million that Russia paid into this company. Only 10% of the income that these guys made was made legitimately. Which tells you so many things about the actual popularity and return on investment that you're going to get out of investing in these guys versus how far Russia was willing to go to pay them to get this messaging out to as many millions of people as they could using these outlets, these useful tools, these flying monkeys, these useful idiots, right? And that is how it works. And it's no different in a cult. It's no different at all in how cults use media front people or operations, pay for them, finance them using shell corporations. These guys had 4 different shell companies they were paying these content creators through. They were getting a check through the U.S. company after it went through a Ukrainian company. No, not Ukrainian, Arab Emirates, a UAE, a Turkish company, and I think a Hungarian company. And there was a Russian and another company in there. So there was all this nonsense going on. And it was right there to be found. The founders of the company allegedly knew about all of this and talked to each other about it, went along for the ride thinking no big deal, we're getting paid like $1 million is kind of what I sort of decipher out of this. I did forensic accounting would nail down exactly how much they made. I'm guessing. We know for a fact the Canadian company was receiving direct money in the tune of about, according to this, about $600,000, something like that, $680,000 if I remember right. And the rest was going over to the U.S. company and being distributed to the founders and to the production teams as they, negotiated their contracts. Only 2 of the content creators actually had their, according to the indictment, had their videos edited by these guys. But over time, after about a month or 2, Russia was actually creating their own content and feeding it into the Discord server and getting it posted on the YouTube channel. So it was a literal Russian propaganda operation on YouTube that they paid $10 million to get. And it was one operation. There are more, according to this. Now, just for kind of fun, just because this was fun, I don't have a big, axe to grind with this guy, but I have watched Tim Pool's descent into right-wing insanity over the years. The guy used to be pretty liberal. And there's a little bit of Schadenfreude here with this. I wanted to share this bit of some responses and reactions to what's been happening in the last couple of days here. Let me get to there we go. Okay, go over to our video page here. Okay, so we've got the video. These are examples of tweets that Tim Pool was sending out over this time. I can't necessarily see them here on the screen, but you should be able to if you blow it up. And most of these things are about civil war, civil war, civil war. Tim was real hot on civil war. And let's generate civil war. Now, if you're a foreign agent, if you're a foreign actor, right, and you're a hostile foreign actor, what message, what direct, blatant message would you love to have your ideologues spewing harder to create division than any other blatant message you could send? Let's have a civil war. Well, here's a whole page, just tweet after tweet after tweet of this. And this guy thinks, if he is, it's almost worse if he is so dumb that he didn't realize the situation he was in with this. And I know that's harsh because I came out of Scientology, but this is civil war. This is cult-like stuff. This is crazy ideologue stuff. This is sowing the seeds. This isn't seeds. This is like barrels of dissension into society. So then we get his statement immediately after this thing drops, this indictment drops. Tim Pool says, my statement regarding allegations in the leaked DOJ indictment. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but should these allegations prove to true, as I, as well as the other personalities and commentators, were deceived and are victims. Yeah, they're victims here. They're victims. Receiving $400,000 a month they were victimized. Right, by Russia here. I hate the framing right away, right? But again, more propaganda. I cannot speak for anyone else at the company as to what they do or to what they are instructed. The Culture War podcast, his podcast, was licensed by Tenet Media. It existed well before any license agreement with Tenet, and it will continue to exist after any such agreement expires. That is true. It is his own podcast and title. The only change with the agreement was that the location of the live broadcast moved to their YouTube channel. Never at any point did anyone other than I have full editorial control of the show, and the contents of the show are often apolitical. Examples include discussing spirituality, dating, and video games, or, you know, the fact that Ukraine is our bitter enemy and should be destroyed, right? The show is produced in its entirety by our local team without input from anyone external to the company. There is the lie. Amongst all this bullshit that this guy posts, there's the lie. And if he's too stupid or unaware to realize how he's been influenced, then he could even think that's true. But it's not true. And it was never true. When I literally read to you in the indictment how it's not true. These people pushed subject matter and content matter on these creators, and they willingly picked it up and ran with it, including full-blown bullshit conspiracies that blamed Ukraine and U.S. for things that we were never guilty of, and we're guilty of all kinds of things. But Russia makes us guilty of, you know, everything. All right. That being said, we still do not know what is true, as these are only allegations. True enough. Putin's a scumbag. Russia sucks donkey balls. Okay, thanks, Tim. And blah, 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 blah. Well, the next day, just to show you where Tim's head is at these days, this was his tweet from earlier today, I believe. Upon reflection, I now understand that Ukraine is our greatest ally, with a capital G, by the way. As the broad breadbasket of Europe and a peace-loving people, we cannot allow the capital fascist Russians to continue their crimes against humanity. We must redouble our efforts and provide an additional $200 billion at once. Okay, cool. Thanks, Tim, for your avid support of Ukraine now. So this is kind of how it all works, and I just had to jump all over this and tell you guys about it because it's too parallel to so many things that, you know, maybe some of us have all recently experienced in a very personal way, and at the same time, we're experiencing on a national level, and we see actually happen in cult public relations 7 days a week. They are up to exactly this same thing. The Moonies, the Scientologists, the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Mormons, they all do this. Overtly and covertly. And you're all aware of the overt stuff. You're not aware of the covert stuff. And you'd have to really dig in order to find it, just like the DOJ had to dig to get this. This is the full-blown investigation and like, you know, months and months of work to put all this together and put this indictment out there. So, and there's more, right? Like I said, this isn't all that the DOJ has. So, there you go. That's the world we live in, and I had to share it with y'all. So, let's now wrap up.
Right.
Where are them? Ah, here they are. Okay, you guys are getting an awesome podcast tomorrow. I interviewed in studio here this week. Melanie Tracek King was here in Denver. She is a critical thinking science educator. She is a biologist by education and then educator, and she's awesome. We had a great talk about not just critical thinking. The show is titled What You Don't Know About Critical Thinking, because we go pretty deep on a couple things that are never really, hardly ever talked about when it comes to critical thinking and emotions and humility and aspects of critical thinking in our communities. We got a lot to say about these things, so I hope you'll check out that podcast tomorrow. So what is our cognitive bias for today?
It's a fallacy, and it's personal incredulity. Oh my God, personal incredulity.
That's it.
Saying that because one finds something difficult to understand, that it's therefore not true. Kirk drew a picture of a fish and a human, and with effusive disdain asked Richard if he really thought we were stupid enough to believe that a fish somehow turned into a human through just like random things happening over time. Yeah, just because you don't understand it doesn't mean it's not true.
That's right. That's right. And let me just say, for fairness sake or whatever today, that I wanted to highlight the techniques and methods and covert operations that go on here as an example. But I don't want to give anybody the impression that I'm naive enough to believe that the United States government doesn't engage in operations like this as well.
Oh, I'm sure.
In other countries,
Yeah,
okay?
come on.
Not at all. Okay. This isn't about that so much as it's about, I wanted to just kind of, this is how it works. And it's not obvious. And I just can't keep saying that enough because I really want people to understand that, you know? All right. So that all being said, guys, thanks for coming around and listening to us rattle on this week. Hope you'll check out the podcast tomorrow. Join us live, join me live rather, on Sunday for Critical Q&A. We'll have a good time. And I'll see you guys, soon.
Good
Bye-bye.
night.